The weather outside is frightful, but I have a chicken tortellini soup here that's delightful. Definitely a nice warm treat on a cold winter day. So if you want to see how this is made or want to make some variation of it, stick around because it's coming up next. Hello and welcome to my kitchen. My name is Roy. I am a home cook, an amateur baker, and I am here on this channel sharing recipes that have helped me to lose over 125 pounds, whether those recipes are mine or someone else's. Now today is going to be one of mine, and I'm doing a chicken tortellini soup. It's one of Paul's favorites, but you don't have to use tortellini. What I'm going to do is show you the base of the soup, and you can adapt it to whatever you want. And we will go over those options as we go along. So to go over the ingredients, I have roughly 1 pound of chicken that I diced very small. In most soups, you'll see very small dices of chicken. You could, if you wanted, cook the chicken beforehand and shred it. That is your call. I have 2.5 cups of tortellini. As I said, you don't have to use the tortellini. You can use rice, you can use konjac noodles, you can use fiber gourmet, you can use any pasta you want. You don't even need to use a pasta. You could do like a mixed vegetable from your freezer. It's very adaptable, but I'm going to show you the base. But this is what I'm using to make my chicken tortellini soup. I have 2 containers or 8 cups of low sodium chicken broth, some cooking spray. I have a 1/2 cup of diced onion. That was about one small onion. And you can play around with the vegetables. You can use more, you can use less. Jennifer Lynn, you don't have to use the onions. 1/2 cup of diced celery and 1/2 cup of diced carrot. Although if you know me, you know I use baby carrots, so that way I can just slice them rather than having to dice a whole carrot. I just prefer that, and I like to throw them around. But you can dice a carrot. You can even use frozen diced carrots. Make it easy on yourself. Don't stress. It's a new year. We don't need any more stress. So just make it easy on yourself. Now we also have 1 teaspoon of garlic, which is 1 clove. That's minced, 1/2 a teaspoon of black pepper. I have a teaspoon of Better Than Bouillon, the chicken flavor. And this is the one I like using. You don't have to use this. You could use 1 bouillon cube. This is just to enhance the chicken flavor. The chicken broth doesn't always have the strongest flavor. Or if you didn't want to use that at all, just use 1 teaspoon of salt. And then over here we have 1 teaspoon of dried thyme. If you wanted to use fresh, you would use 1 tablespoon of fresh thyme, because dried herbs are 3 times stronger than the fresh. So you could swap out if you wanted, if you had some leftover fresh herbs that you wanted to use up. Okay, so I have my big pot here, my silicone spatula. Let me just shuffle a couple of things around and we will get started. Okay, so I have my stock pot here heating up over medium-high heat. I'm just going to spray it with some cooking spray, and we are going to start with the vegetables. Okay, so we're going to put in the onion, and that's what you want to hear, is that nice little sizzle. The celery and the carrot. And we're just going to saute these for a little bit so they can soften up. All right, so we're going to give these about 5 minutes, and I'll be right back. Okay, so it has been 5 minutes. Now what I'm going to do is add in the garlic and let that get aromatic in here. Just want to cook that briefly for like 30 seconds, just until you really start to smell it. You don't want it to go much longer than that because it could burn. And if you stir it around, less chance of that. We're also going to add in our dried thyme and stir that around. Okay, now I'm going to push all of the veggies off to the side. I'm going to spray this one more time before I add the chicken. And then these are very small pieces of chicken, so they're going to cook fairly quickly, and we're not necessarily looking for them to cook through. We just want to get some color in there. So spread that out and let that sit for a moment just to get some color. Now see, I'm sure I'm not getting any good overhead shots because there's so much steam coming off here. Hopefully it will clear up a little bit and I can show you what it's looking like. It's just a little whitened right now. There's still some pink. You want to cook this for about 3 to 4 minutes just until you don't see any of the pink. But again, like I said, we're going to cook this a little bit longer in the broth so it doesn't have to be fully cooked through. You're looking to maybe develop a little bit of color so that way you can get some flavor from browning the chicken a little bit. And any of the browning on the bottom, you can try to scrape up. It's not great using a silicone spatula for that, but once you add the broth, it'll get a little easier. And if you see any bigger pieces of chicken, you can just cut those in half or cut them down anyway. It doesn't have to be precisely in half. But sometimes when you're cutting, they don't all come out uniform. Now the chicken, I did cut the chicken into cutlets first, and I will overlay an image of that, and then cut it into smaller strips, and then little dices. So that's how I got the small dices, but I will overlay that here so that you can see exactly what I'm talking about for making small dices for your chicken soup. Okay. So that's pretty well colored. What we want to do is sprinkle in our pepper and our bouillon. If you're using salt, just sprinkle that in. And then we're gonna toss that around to coat the chicken with the pepper and the bouillon or salt or whatever. And some of the steam is dissipating, so hopefully I can get a good overhead shot of this. And it's helping me, like the liquid from the chicken is helping me to scrape up some of the brown from the pan. All right, so now we're just going to add in our chicken broth, or splash it all over yourself, and throw the cap in the pot. That's not really one of the steps, so I would avoid that if you can. Wasn't a pleasant sound. Broth has cooled down the pan, so it's not a pleasant sound, but part of the process. All right, so I'm gonna stir this around. Now, you'll see because we did brown things, the broth is a little darker than just like a chicken broth you might find in a can, but that's totally fine. It's gonna give us a lot more flavor, a lot more depth. All right, so what we're going to do now is bring this to a boil and let it cook for about 10 minutes once it comes to a boil. Then we're gonna add in our tortellini, but I'll be back when we're ready to do that step. All right, so this has been boiling for about 10 minutes. Okay, this is Editing Roy stopping in here to let you know, once the broth comes to a boil, reduce the heat so that it becomes a simmer. Do not boil it the whole time. I should have turned it down. I did not. The chicken came out a little rubbery, but if you do as I write it up in the recipe and not as I did it here, you'll be fine. I usually turn it down. I don't know why I did not this time, but such is life. Learn from my mistakes. I'm not perfect. I know, hard to believe, but I'm not. Okay, back to the video. Once it got to a boil, I just let it sit for about 10 minutes so that all those flavors could meld together and the veggies could soften and the chicken could cook through. So now what we want to do is add in our tortellini, and these are frozen. They're just going to be in there 3 to 5 minutes until they're cooked through. Now, as I said, you don't have to use tortellini, but for me, if I were to make this a chicken and rice soup or use a different pasta, something that wasn't frozen and basically cooked, I would cook that separately. I wouldn't put it into the pot and let the rice or pasta cook that way because it would absorb too much of the chicken broth. So I would cook that separately and then add it in later. So you could add in 2.5 cups of rice. You could add in some pasta, as I said, cooked beforehand. If you wanted to make this just chicken and veggies, now that all the raw veggies have cooked, I would take 2.5, 3 cups of frozen mixed vegetables and throw those in right now in place of the tortellini. Now, one other thing I did want to mention is I said that you could shred your chicken if you didn't want to cube it up. Sometimes I would take the chicken breast, cook it in the broth early on, and before I do any of the vegetables, I do this as a separate step. So that way the chicken and the broth kind of flavor each other a little bit. But doing that, you get some of that scum that floats to the top of the liquid when you do cook chicken that way. So if you don't mind just scraping that off, you could do it that way. Or you could cook the chicken separately, shred it, and then add it in with the tortellini. Since it's already cooked, you wouldn't have to cook it any further. All right, so let me give this another 3 minutes and I'll be right back. Okay, so I'm going to turn this down to just keep it warm. It's already cooked through. All of the tortellini are floating on the top, which indicates that they are done. Now you could, if you wanted, put a little Parmesan in there to flavor it up a little bit more. It's very versatile. You could even, if you enjoy mushrooms, unlike my friend Brie, you could have added mushrooms to the what they call mirepoix, carrot, celery, and onion. You can take out what you don't like, add what you don't like. This is really just a base recipe. Up until I added the tortellini, that's basically a chicken soup that you can do anything with. So make it your own. Whatever you enjoy, whatever you like, whatever it's going to satisfy you, that's what you should be doing. So there you have it, my chicken tortellini soup. Now this makes, for me, 6 servings. You could do 8 servings. I calculated everything as 6. You could even do 4. If you were very hungry, you wanted to make this a dinner, that's fine as well. But I did the servings for 6, and as I made it here with the tortellini, this is 3 bites a serving. And that's about 1.5 cups of the soup. For calories, they would be 210. If you're following macros, the fat would be 3.2 grams. The carbs would be 20.5 grams. And the protein would be 23.3 grams. And again, that's for 6 servings. If you adjust, if you change out, do something other than tortellini, those things are going to change. But adapt it to what you want, to what you need, to what is going to satisfy you on your weight loss journey. So if you enjoyed this recipe, I hope you'll give me a thumbs up. I would really appreciate that. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't yet and you're looking for recipes that can help you on a weight loss journey. Hit the notification bell for the next time I upload any sort of video. Share these videos if you think there's someone out there that you know of who is on a weight loss journey who would appreciate having some variety in their menu. Please share these videos. I would appreciate that as well. And comment down below, is tortellini the way you would go? Would you go for rice? Maybe just veggies? Let me know down in the comments what your choice would be. And the recipe for this will be on my blog, which is linked down below, as well as many other things that you can find down in the description box, including my social media. And here is my Instagram if you wanted to follow me there. And there are also 2 Facebook groups that I'm part of. One is mine, Recipes with Roy, and the other one is Finding Our Way, WEIGH. And that one I co-admin with Jennifer Lynn from the Jennifer Lynn channel, as well as Bree Coleman from Balancing Life with Bree. So join us over there. Lots of great tips, tricks, recipes, people, and support. So I think Paul is about ready for some delicious chicken tortellini soup. I know I am. So I'm going to serve this up and we're going to have our lunch. So until next time, bye.